So it's the queen of blues rock guitar, Joanna Connor. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. It's not too bad. We're still all locked down in England, but just carry on.
Yeah, I know the new normal, as they say. We
Exactly.
are they just starting to open things up here in the Chicago area, so we'll see what happens.
So when was the last time you did a gig?
I did a gig on October 20, no, October 30th outside by
Yeah.
myself, October 28th, and they were both outside and it was freezing. So that was the last.
Oh my God, it's funny, isn't it? That you just kind of have to sort of just get on with it, don't you? But so I kind of like to start at the beginning with all my guests that come on to kind of create like a picture of your guitar journey. So I read something that you said that music chose me.
Mhm.
What did you mean by that?
I have like distinct memories of me trying to sing like Louis Armstrong. And I looked up the year that the song was on the radio. It was 1964, and I was 2 years old. So I'm like, well, if I was already obsessed with singing it too, and I remember this, I feel like it was divine providence, as they say, because it's been in my life ever since, some kind of way.
And you see, you that's nuts. Louis Armstrong of all things as well.
A little girl, and yeah, pretty funny.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, that's not normal, but in a great. So so then, how does the guitar fit into this picture then?
Well, I started off singing like most kids and
Yeah.
playing the hands and imagining I was playing guitar. And then one day I woke up and my mom bought me this little cheap classical guitar. And she's like, "You're going to take guitar lessons." And I was like, "Really?" Okay. I was 7 years old. So, and then I played for a couple of years. I quit, and then I picked it up again on my own in high school and never stopped.
Reading something, and you said it's you like you started. So you went to university, was that right? No, you started playing at universities, but you were like 17 and doing professional gigs, and then you got to play with Buddy Guy really young as well. It seemed like hadn't been playing for that long, and all of a sudden there you are with Buddy Guy. Like, how does that happen?
I hadn't really been playing that long. I mean, I had been playing guitar off and on since I was like 14, basically.
Yeah.
But I didn't play any lead or anything. And then when I decided to move to Chicago, that was my main objective. I'm like, I want to learn to play this guitar. I'm a good rhythm player. I know a little bit of slide, but I cannot solo. And there's so many things I need to learn. And trying to sit with a record wasn't cutting it. And I wanted to move to Chicago. So, but I went out every single night and I asked all these different players about stuff and got to jam it, and things just started to come to me. And then before I knew it, I was playing in the house band at the Checkerboard Lounge with Dion Payton and the 43rd Street Blues Band, and we were backing up Buddy Guy pretty regularly because it was his club.
It seems like you kind of missed the whole bedroom phase and just went straight out to the stage.
Well, exactly, but I spent many lonely nights and days practicing guitar as a unpopular band geek. So I played saxophone and guitar, and I devoted a lot of time to practicing. Yeah, but I was very determined to, get into a band as soon as I could. Besides school band, I was in all these different school bands, but yeah,
Best way to learn, isn't it? I think, and that's what I'm getting when I chat to all of you incredible guitarists. It's like just get out there and play with other musicians, and that's how you learn.
totally. I always tell people that I'm like, even if you're a so-called amateur, if you could ever play with other musicians, and now you can play with things on the internet. I mean, it's better than nothing, because that is the way you learn the quickest. And to interact with other musicians is really important.
So what was the artist or the gig or the album that kind of changed your life musically?
It's, it's really hard to say because, like I said, music was part of my life from a very early age. My mother loved music, so she played all kinds of music in the house, blues, jazz, rock, classical, whatever. An extensive catalog of things. So I can't think of any one pivotal moment. I just remember being really little, like singing I had a flowered wallpaper and I used to sing to the flowers, pretending they were people in the audience. So that's why I said it must have chose me because I did it from the time can remember.
Do you think it on your record? You dedicate your new record, to your mum? And I wanted to cry when I read that. Actually, it makes me want to cry now. It's so sweet.
Oh.
It's just like you just think to yourself, oh my God, like it just felt like she was so important in this whole music for you. Like what? Like, well, where did that come from? Like, why was she so adamant that she really wanted you to be a musician? Because that is so unheard of. Parents normally say, no, you're not doing that.
Oh, I know. Isn't that the truth? Because, my mom played piano. We didn't have a piano growing up because we were kind of poor, but she grew up playing piano and she wanted to be a pianist, and her parents were like, no, you cannot do that. They were immigrants, you're going to college, you're going to be a doctor, whatever they decided she was going to be. And she quit college after 2 years. One thing, she went to Purdue University in Indiana, and she grew up in Massachusetts. And this was during the 50s and everything was segregated. And she said she couldn't take it, like, colored only, white only. She's like, what is this? And totally against what she believed and felt, so she left and she didn't go back to college till I was grown. And but yeah, so music was she loved art and theater and music, and that was she was a character. My mom was a character.
See, when I read that dedication, I was like, she sounds like a character. Like, what a
was
like fantastic. Yeah, you were very lucky to have a mum like that.
I was.
And now so before you and I had this chat, I was chatting to Joe Bonamassa, and I told him that I'm going to be chatting to you, and he said, well, he asked me if I could ask you a question actually, and he was wondering, yes, what it was like to work with the most handsome man in blues.
Well, let me tell you. It's so funny. I read all these women commenting on his pictures, because I look at his posts and it's like, he is just one hot babe to all these women. And he's just the most unassuming, like, kind of nerdy, cool. Like, I love his sense of humor, like, just dry sense of humor, just an unassuming guy. And I'm like, oh, he must think this is hysterical, that all these women are falling all over him. Well, I must say, he was quite inspirational to me to sing all those tortured love songs, having him sit 5 feet away from me.
It's funny because I text him, and then I got the text back like, can you ask her? And I was like, oh, I thought you were going to give me something actually decent to ask.
Oh, that's what I love about Joe. That totally sounds like his sense of humor. I was just watching his posts yesterday about the major minor clash. I don't know if you saw that on.
I did see it. That's what I've said to her. I said, you've got to keep putting these out because they're just hilarious. That is
hilarious.
When you know him and you look at that, you just go, that is Joe all over. That's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
So he produced your album along with Josh. They're like the little duo that are going out at the moment. Those two, they're going to take over the world, aren't they?
They should. They're very well qualified. They should take over the world. I think I told Joe, I'm like, well, you have a great career in music, but he could definitely have a career as a producer. There's just no doubt in my mind about that.
So looks aside, what was he like?
Besides being incredibly handsome, he was very he was really good at, well, he blew me away with his technical prowess in there. I'm like, oh Lord. He was just, oh, can you put on the XR 2000, you know, whatever. I'm the total opposite. So I was just sitting there dumbfounded, like, how did you learn all of this? And but the way he just set the tone for the record, the way he can communicate to the musicians, his sense of taste, picking the material, inspiring us to like really give it our all. Just knowing how to keep the whole atmosphere on the right path, you know. He was, and then, you know, with the vocal part, because he really was more hands-on with that with me afterwards, you know, the fact that he can sing well, it was a tremendous boost to me because he could actually sing to me, hey, why don't you try this, you know. And that was the first time I'd ever had a producer that could actually sing. So, you know, and he painted all these these dramatic pictures of like, well, why don't you, like each song, you know, he would paint like this whole detailed scenario of me walking somewhere and seeing my husband or whatever cheating on, you know, like this whole thing, whatever. He'd make up these different stories to get me to get very dramatic with things. And, you know, it was pretty funny. I mean, because he's always got his tongue-in-cheek kind of thing going on, but which is my favorite sense of humor. So it was good.
No, I hear you. But was it intimidating working with another guitarist? Because that's the thing, like you say, with the vocals, but he could also play the guitar as well, which is.
Oh, yeah. That was the most scary part to me, like on my way, the leading up to this session, and especially in the plane, sitting there going, oh my God, this is like one of the greatest guitar players ever to play the guitar. And I'm going to be playing guitar in front of him. And I was just like petrified. And I'm like, either I'm going to totally freeze and just stink it up, or I'm going to just have to try to kick some butt. So I guess it worked out. You know, he made me feel relaxed, which is funny. I think he set it up so I would be relaxed. We were all in the same room.
Yeah.
You know, he was in the control room, but the band was so good. I really just got caught up in the music, and it wasn't sterile like everybody in the booth, or, you know, you could really feel the music. The drummer was right across from me. Yeah, so it worked. Reese was next to me. Josh Smith was there. Me, and it felt great.
Was it a different way to how you usually work then?
Not necessarily. I mean, the last record I did on my own, my band and we all played in the same room, and then I overdubbed later.
Okay.
But, you know, it's kind of what I like to do because I'm a live musician. I play 98% of my stuff's on a stage, not in the studio. So that wasn't so, but just, you know, it's like a gig. You never know. You can play with the same band all the time. Some nights you're fantastic, some nights it's meh, you know, and you don't really know what's gonna make that night work. And it's kind of like I always say, it's like it's magic. And it was like that with this session. I mean, we could have went in there and it could have been not so spectacular, even with great musicians, but it really, really gelled.
And I know that he made you not have any pedals and stuff like that. He made you strip it all back.
He did. I was in a slight panic when he did that.
Yeah.
He was like, I have my pedals, and I don't have a lot, but I have my go-to stuff. And he listened to me, he goes, okay, nope, take them away. He goes, this is not 1980s Winger or something like that.
Oh my God.
I was dying. So, but you know, he had his amp, one of his old vintage amps, cranked, and we started playing, and I did all my guitar solos live. I didn't overdub them or do them over. Like really the only thing I overdubbed was the last song we both played later, him and I, and nice vocals. Other than that, everything was done in the studio live.
Wow, okay. And it was in Nashville, wasn't it? Is that where you were?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was it like being in Nashville?
You know, I used to play Nashville kind of regularly, like a couple times a year, but I hadn't been there in years, and it's really grown. It was cool because, you know, where the studio was is kind of like the music area. Well, the whole city's based on music, but there was just a lot of street signs named after musicians, and it was cool. The people that owned the studio were that Southern charm, very down home, very welcoming. You know, it was a nice little cultural I don't know, immersion compared to living in a northern city, you know.
Yeah, so I mean, you've been in Chicago for a long time then. So how long have
Mhm.
you been in Chicago for?
Like 35 years.
Blimey, okay, yeah, so that's a long.
Yeah.
And you've played a lot of the kind of legendary clubs that are there with the whole Chicago blues and stuff. I mean, how important do you think that whole scene was to who you are now?
Oh, absolutely important. I mean, my whole goal was all of the, I mean, I knew blues growing up. I saw a lot of the Chicago bands when they toured, but also all my favorite rock music was all based in the blues. And I was like, all the legends, you know, Hendrix, the Stones, Zeppelin, whoever, they knew the blues. I mean, they loved the blues. And I'm like, well, if I ever want to be a really decent rock player, I want to have that same, you know, the gumbo, you know, I want that gumbo in
Yeah.
my yeah. So yeah, I just pursued that and I felt it was important. I mean, I ended up just staying in the blues scene. I never really went on to that rock career per se. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no modern music without blues.
I know, 100%. Yeah. But so before we did this interview, I was reading something, and where is it? I'm going to find it. I've got it here. And it said, Joanna's hailed by many as one of the most powerful and influential female guitarists in the world. And I'm like, okay, that pisses me off because why does it have to say female guitarist? Why can't it just say guitarists?
Aha, well, we could go on and down that rabbit hole for a long time.
Right.
I and I don't want to just be like controversial just to be controversial, but in America, I can't speak for the entire world, but the white male pretty much runs everything still. So if you're not white and you're not male, they could potentially mention the greatest black rock band like Living Color or, you know, and so when you're a female, that's a whole nother thing that transcends everything. You're still, whether you're black, white, whatever, you're a woman, so therefore you're under a whole nother set of preconceived notions. So they're always going to put that tag by you, and you're going to be judged for different reasons that most men are not going to. I mean, even actresses, come on. You look at a movie, the guy's 50, the woman's 25. You know what I'm saying? And they're supposed to be the same age. You know, we just have to, until things really, and things are changing. We know my lifetime they have. My mom she was on the ground floor in the 70s of that women's lib movement and whatever. And I don't know. It's just going to be that way for a little while, I think. You know, my daughter's an athlete, and she's an athlete in college, and now she's a coach in college. He's like, what they give to the women compared to what they give to the men is totally, you would not believe the difference.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Even in a big program, you know, the men fly in an airplane, the women are on a bus for 10 hours.
Oh,
Um,
don't. That boiled. My blood is.
okay,
That's
it's like that. Yeah. It's like it's college sports.
right in this
Yeah.
day and age. Seriously, I mean,
Yeah.
but it has changed, isn't it? Since you've started, you can see it
Mhm.
change, like where you are. I mean, the fact that they still like female guitarists. I mean, seriously, I think you've earned your stripes to be called just a guitarist, not a female guitarist. Like you're a freaking novelty.
Yeah. No, but like talking to you with all the guitars in the background, I mean, more and more women are playing
Yeah.
guitar, sitting there strumming, where there's nothing wrong with that. But you know, really wanting to dive in deep to guitar, and there's a lot of really good players now. Whereas when I first came out in my early 20s, there was like no one. There was like Bonnie Raitt and Emily Remler playing jazz, and
You may have
you
had
know,
what's her name? God, Nancy Wilson.
Lancey Wilson, but she didn't really solo. People don't talk about that. She played wonderful finger style playing, nice chords, but she didn't take the lead rock solos. I saw them when I was 15, loved it, but she wasn't Jimmy Page. I mean, no diss to her, she's fabulous. But
Yeah.
you know, the Ford, there was some women that were just going out there really playing. Bonnie Raitt played slide solos. So there was, I mean, there was women classical players for sure, but the women just out there being rock and roll guitar heroes or blues heroes, there really wasn't many. It was Sister Rosetta Tharpe, who I didn't even know existed until 10 years ago. You know, she was playing a lot of lead stuff and doing her thing way back when, but I didn't know about her.
Did you not? And you were in the blues and you hadn't heard of her?
No.
See, again, that's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they call her the godmother, don't they? Of
Now,
yeah.
But look, I mean, you'd have to really be a scholar. And I felt pretty educated about roots music and blues music. I mean, there was Memphis Minnie but I mean, come on, you're mentioning 5 people out of, you know, thousands of guitar players. So, but now it is different and it's refreshing to see, you know, and the world is evolving in all ways. I mean, racially, sex wise, everything, you know, LGBTQ, all that stuff. I mean, when my daughter was in high school, they had an LGBTQ club. I mean, when I was growing up, you wouldn't even be caught dead mentioning anything like that.
Yeah.
You know, that in her school, and I was like, well, that's really nice. And she wasn't gay, but some of her friends were, and it was fine. They went to the prom. I mean, so things have really evolved in the social. We got a long way to go, but it's much better.
So you know, you mentioned the soloing and stuff like that. I mean, how does that work for you then? Like who was inspiring you as a female then? Was there anyone? No.
They were all men. I mean, I loved sports as a kid too. So I was always playing in the street, ball and whatever. And I knew, I was like, back then there was no WNBA, there was no women's professional soccer. So I was like, well, I can't do this for a living. There was barely even college sports then, but I can play an instrument and who's going to stop me, you know, because I feel like guys had all the fun. They did all the fun stuff. And I'm like, well, why can't we do the fun stuff? You know, why can't we be wailing on a guitar? Why can't we play the drums? Why can't we, you know, be a basketball hero or whatever?
Yeah.
So that's what drove me. It wasn't like I needed a woman to look up to because there was no woman to look up to really. But I was determined that just because I was a female wasn't going to stop me from doing something I enjoyed and wanted to do.
I wish I could fist pump you right now. I feel like let's have a virtual one or high five you. I mean, it's incredible. I think you know, you certainly give the boys a run for their money when it comes to playing the guitar. So good on you.
I had to.
Exactly, you had no choice. So how, after all of these years, do you keep it fresh and still have that kind of like fire in your belly to keep going?
Oof, there's been moments in my life where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And it's not because I don't love the music, it's because everything around it, the business end, you know, they're trying to make a living, the US government who could give 2 craps about anything to do with the art, basically, and the arts, you know, and it's evident now.
Yeah. Exactly.
I just love music. That's what kept me going. I love the art of making music, especially performing, and not because I love to be worshipped as a performer. I like being on stage in the moment with a great band, with the vibe of the crowd and that whole feeling that you get. It's like, I knew the first time it ever happened, I was like, it's like a drug. I'm like, oh, I'm hooked on this. This is what I want to do. So that's what's kept me going, you know, throughout the years.
You can't quite give it up because you're addicted to it.
Yeah.
It's just all the crap that comes with it that kind of makes you go, oh, takes the fun out of it.
It does. You know, it's like it becomes anything to do with, you know, art and business. It's kind of a strange.
Yeah, you're right. They don't mix at all. They don't. Well, Joanna, thank you so much for coming on the show and chatting to me. It's great. Your new album sounds brilliant. So congratulations for that. I'm guessing you're really happy with it.
I am, well, because I worked with the world's most handsome producer.
There we have it. That was the incredible Joanna Connor, and her new album 4801 South Indiana Avenue is out now on Keeping the Blues Alive Records. I'll see you soon.